Good morning. It's November 3rd, 2022. This segment is entitled In Light of and Still Noticing Texas Governor Greg Abbott's Corruption. And the reason for this is because most of the stuff that I've always said about him was always under speculation, and physical evidence hardly ever came up until throughout the course of time. A little bit here, a little bit there. Something was always popping up that would lead me to go back to these speculations. Here's one today that's almost verifiable proof. Okay. It's posted by the Texas Tribune. It's entitled, Texas Diverts $359.6 million from prisons to keep Greg Abbott's border mission operating. Okay. $365.6 million from prisons to keep the Operation Lone Star program operating. Governor Greg Abbott and his state leaders and other state leaders are pulling $359.6 million out of the state prison system's budget to fund his Operation Lone Star border security operations through the next 10 months. The transfers of the money will not only support OLS, Operation Lone Star, but will also fund public school security measures, COVID-19 response expenses, and a new elementary school in Uvalde, where that school shooting took place at Robb Elementary, according to the governor's office. Okay, for the record, it's just the governor's office that's saying this crap. It's not necessarily the governor himself. But even if he was, bear with me, because somewhere down the line I'm going to bring up about how he's always making these promises and blah, blah, blah. Okay, continuing. I have to do this with reading the article and making my comments because it's a 2-paged article. Sorry about this. The money for Operation Lone Star is being transferred from Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Okay, that $359.6 million, to be more specific, is coming out of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice directly into Greg Abbott's disaster fund. There's that word again, which he uses to distribute money for the operation. And I'd like to remind everybody, every time he does these declaration of disasters, he's pulling out millions of dollars, distributing hundreds of thousands of dollars to certain counties like Kinney County, Webb County, Maverick County, Kennedy County, who actually revealed how much he was getting per year. $750,000, by the way, $750,000 US dollars off of our taxpayer dollars, just in that one county. The other counties, Kinney, Webb, Maverick, Del Rio, even Uvalde County, was getting money in the name of Operation Lone Star to protect to supposedly protect us from the migrants who they're always saying is an invasion, who's always saying that they're just overwhelmed. You know, they've been saying it from the very beginning, despite the fact that they're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, and yet at the same time they're never capable of handling their job of handling the so-called overwhelming invasion. Okay, and I'll get back to that. Let me get back to this article here. One reason for this is because DPS did not get any funding for Operation Lone Star, despite the fact that they've already got millions taken out, especially and particularly with where Abbott was suing the government for millions. He's up to $4 billion and change now. Okay, and that's the last that I know. It could already be surpassing $5 billion into $6 billion. However, the last that I heard, he's already gotten just over $4 billion just within this year alone. But it all started last year in September of 2021. And September of 2021. So DPS didn't get any funding this year, so Texas has to divert $359.6 million for the Department of Public Safety. Okay. That's because the finances have come under increased scrutiny for the past year. In September of 21, the Texas legislature approved nearly $2 billion to ramp up border protection, only to see the governor repeatedly transfer more money from the other state agencies to the initiative ever since. So as far back as when it was at first $2 billion, nobody was really looking at that. Instead, they were looking at checks signed after being pulled out from other departments, from other agencies. You see where this is going? It's going straight to theft, legal, or at least politically ruled theft of our tax-paying dollars through suing the government for up to $2 billion and shifting our department's agencies, our state agencies' funding around to Operation Lone Star, that's supposed to protect the border and the wall and build the wall, which still isn't even being worked on. It hasn't been completed. It hasn't been repaired. It hasn't been picked up off the ground after it was made 10 feet taller. It's still lying on the ground. It hasn't been worked on. So where did that $2 billion go? And why is money being pulled out of all the other agencies to be put into this program that isn't protecting us, much less providing a wall? You see what I'm saying? And then to top it all off, this is out of his own admittance. Okay? He's declared this during a declaration of disaster. Okay? As far back as September of 2021. Under the declaration of disaster, pursuant to section 418.017, I authorize the use, this is his words, I authorize the use in print of all available resources of state government and political subdivisions that are reasonably necessary to cope with this disaster, including the use of all available resources of the state and local law enforcement to assist and protect Texas from criminal activity and property damage. Okay, translation. With section 418.017, I'm going to legally cause problems for the humanitarian causes and legally cause problems to law enforcement that's catching a lot of traffickers to pull resources to the assist and protect whom I call my people at the cost of the tax-paying dollars as I see fit. Okay? This guy has had state troopers and DPS and many others doing stuff like checking tires of trucks that are passing the border instead of checking cargo to see if there's any humans or weapons or drugs being smuggled. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Causing problems for law enforcement, and to top it all off, to prevent catching traffickers. The proof is in El Paso, Beto O'Rourke's territory, where none of that Operation Lone Star procedure is being used. Everybody is still hunkering down and holding their own against traffickers where they're actually being caught. We're getting people getting rescued and recovered in rescues out of stash houses where people are cramped in, trafficked migrants. You know, back in May, we had a total of 70 kids recovered and rescued, and of course, because it was done through West Texas, sent to rehabilitations instead of just being sent out or being taken to a home or something or whatever. You know, the proof is that Greg Abbott is using this declaration of disaster to cause problems with law enforcement as well as the humanitarian causes. And he's doing it all off of our tax-paying dollars, again, as he sees fit. Moving on. The Texas prison system itself, because this is on this article, it's talking about the $359.6 million that's being taken away from prisons, okay? The Texas prison system itself is best by understanding a rising healthcare cost and rising healthcare costs. Okay? Excuse me. Man, I just read that all wrong. Sorry about that. And I don't have an edit button on this thing. Sorry. The Texas prison system itself is beset by understaffing and rising healthcare costs. Okay? Last August, Texas Department of Criminal Justice, where this money is being pulled out of, the hundreds of millions of dollars, had about 76% of its officers' position filled. Only 67, I'm sorry, me and my dyslexia, 67% of its officer positions filled. Okay, that's in the Department of Criminal Justice. Some larger Texas state prisons had less than 40% of officer positions filled. Okay? This is a problem. A spokesperson for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice said that the transfer of money would negatively impact the agency. The Texas Department of Criminal Justice also said the same amount of transferred money would be allocated to the agency for pandemic-related expenses, but did not elaborate on where that funding would come from or even when. Yeah. What did we see? What did we see? The Texas prison system itself is beset by understaffing and rising healthcare costs. So where did the money go to that? Before this, right here in this year, $359.6 million that's now going to be taken out of their budgeting. They had an opportunity. Our Texas governor had the opportunity to shift money around, as long as he was doing it, to put more employees at our state prisons. Okay? Instead, he shifted dollars to DPS, the Department of Public Safety, state troopers, the Texas National Guard, the Texas Military Department, etc. To do what? To one, arrest asylum-seeking migrants instead of the traffickers. El Paso was that prime example that I was talking about. Traffickers were getting away here throughout the entire state of Texas except for West Texas. Money was being shifted for all of these departments, DPS, state troopers, and all that. And nobody was getting caught. The only people that were getting cuffed were asylum-seeking migrants. That was it. That was it. Each money was shifted to pay for the bus migrant scheme. Busing migrants all the way up to sanctuary cities. Okay? That's what the hundreds of millions of dollars being pulled out of divisions and agencies, just like the Department of Texas Department of Criminal Justice was used to actually spend. It wasn't out of that $2 billion, much less up to the $4 billion, because otherwise it would have been posted by now. We would have already seen where that money went. Instead, we're looking at money being yanked out of other agencies to pay for this stuff. Bus migrants. And the print-ups of waivers for those migrants to sanctuary cities. Even the sponsored migrants, the migrants that came over here seeking asylum that had sponsors, to Miami, to some of the farmlands out of southeast U.S., to California, where I think it was industrial work, I can't remember, but a sponsor for there. They had sponsors. Even up in Iowa, where the corn crop is, there was one that was needed to go there because he had a sponsor. Instead, he was given a piece of paper that says you can be released from the holding facility if you check one of two boxes to go, which was DC or New York. Okay, that was their choices. They were sponsored with a destination, and it was all mucked up with tax-paying dollars to print up waivers that would release them if they were to either go to New York or DC, and only New York or only DC. That also happened off of our tax-paying dollars. Oh, and the one of those things about building a brand new school and all this stuff, because of the shootings at Robb Elementary in Uvalde. He's also going to be shifting this money around to pay for revising of the school's threat assessment plan, the one that he started in 2018 after an entirely different school got shot up back in 2018. And technically, he's already kept it. It was never removed. He just added on that we're going to be spending millions of dollars on brand new door locks to our schools. And that's it. That's all he's proposed. So now you're seeing where all these hundreds of millions of dollars have been. Oh, and by the way, Abbott has done nothing for the safety or the savings of money concerning COVID. He was up there backing up the hoax. Okay? He was taking PPP loans. He was accepting all these COVID vaccinations just for them to be stored in warm storages where it went shot to hell and ruined that very same day upon receiving. I've already stated that in a previous post. And it was all placed in communities and districts and counties where people actually believed that COVID was a hoax. So there was nobody getting any COVID in those areas. And then to top it all off, they were destroying the vaccines when they came in instead of keeping them refrigerated. They were just placing them in warm storages. Okay, that's also my current governor, Greg Abbott's corruption. Moving on. Previous budget transfers to Operation Lone Star have come from, here we go. The money that went to DPS, the money that went to Department of Military, the money that went to state troopers, the department that went to, the Texas National Guard. It was pulled out of other departments of Texas, not just the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. We're now finding out here in November of 2022, the Texas Health and Human Service Agencies, the Texas Juvenile Justice System, the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. That one caught my attention quick because that's the stuff that protects the children from abusers, assaulters, attackers, again, abusers, spousals, abused wives that are in desperate need of help. And on a rare occasion, husband or father that had a wife that was abusing him, milking him for money, milking his family members for money, hustling other relatives, all this good stuff, and just bringing nothing but trouble to the man of the house. Okay? The Texas Department of Family and Protective Services also protects them too, fathers as well. And hundreds of millions of dollars has been taken out by Governor Greg Abbott. This is also Governor Greg Abbott's part of corruption. Again, stuff that as far back as 2021 when I first started this and first started researching all of this was more or less speculation. I couldn't prove that. There was hardly anything that backed it up. I was only speculating as more and more hype was being thrown concerning the wall and them dodging how it was going to be paid for it or making wild accusations like Mexico was going to pay for it. Those all led to questions that triggered my awareness, that had me researching, that had me finding out that it was coming out of different departments. I just didn't know where. I just didn't know which ones. I do now. And now so do you. Moving on. And the initiative has become a political wedge between those who sharply criticize President Biden's migration policies and the critics who call it a blank check for a governor facing an ineffective financial boondoggle for Texas taxpayers. Now, I don't know what a boondoggle is. I'm going to look it up later. But seeing as how it's described as an ineffective financial boondoggle, for taxpayers, I'm assuming that's a bad thing. Okay? And it's right. People who are criticizing Greg Abbott are criticizing his tactics, like the hundreds of millions of dollars taking out of the Department of Criminal Justice, the hundreds of millions of dollars taking out of the Texas Health and Human Services, the hundreds of millions of dollars that are taking out of the state's juvenile justice system, the hundreds of millions of dollars that is being taken out of the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. They're right. All of this, and along with the suing of the government, is nothing but the corruption of our current Texas governor, who's receiving what is perceived, what can be actually labeled as a blank check for him and his administration and any of the fools that are following. Although I seriously doubt civilians, the fools that are following, are actually getting any money out of this. I think they're just being duped, to be totally honest. And so far, there's no physical evidence proving me wrong. Moving on. Abbott's office has said it will hold off on asking for specific fundings for the Operation Lone Star until lawmakers can address it during the budget hearings, which I'm assuming is going to be after the elections in December, like everybody else's meetings, the gas and oil prices and all this other stuff after the midterms into December. So it's either going to be that or it's just another BS statement that Abbott and his office is saying. I can't tell you who to vote for. That's against the law. And I can't ask you to reveal who you're voting for. That's also against the law. But I can say that I, without putting into any specifics as showing favoritism, can say I am voting for anybody and everybody that's going to back up the current administration, especially while the current administration's backs are against the wall right now. But that fact aside, another reason why I'm voting for that is because I know Greg Abbott is not one of those people. And why? Why else? Is it because of that alone? No. No, it's because of a small list of problems that have led me to believe that this is the better thing to do for my Lone Star state. Greg Abbott has done nothing to stop the pipeline. The pipeline that I've been talking about this entire time, from Alaska into Trans-Canada, back into the Dakotas of the U.S., branching off to Illinois, and finally finishing off here in Texas. He's sold out to foreign-owned refineries like Movita here in Texas, the second largest refinery, foreign-owned, that's causing gas gouging problems. Those non-working refineries, those refineries that are not operating because they let the closing, they let the pandemic, the proper handlings of the pandemic and the closing down and all this other stuff, allow them to close down the refineries, fire a total of 300,000 jobs, and never open them up until our tax-paying dollars are going to be put in through legislation to reopen them again. They're not providing. The oil and fuel and oil companies, they're not budging either. They want this all to come out of our tax-paying dollars. And Greg Abbott is backing them up. He's sold land through his gerrymandering schemes. All this whole housing thing, I'll get to that. Through his gerrymandering schemes, he sold land, 130 acres to be more specific, to a former CCP agent, Sung Gong Shin. That's his name. He's a billionaire guy that made a lot of profit during the time that he was a member and an agent for the Chinese Communist Party. He lives here in Texas. He bought 130,000 acres. And what he's doing is that he's, through Greg Abbott's permission, drilling for liquid natural gas, light natural gas is what it's normally called. And he's shipping all of that. Not here. He's not letting it. He's not making a killing here in Texas or the United States. He's shipping all of that to China. So the CCP can still govern and make a lot of profit and do a lot of damage on the Chinese themselves, while still supplying the world through their market this light natural gas. Again, that's being drilled and pumped out of Texas soil, out of 130 acres, under the current Governor Greg Abbott's permission. We're not receiving a profit out of it. He probably did, but we are not. We're not seeing gas out of it. We're not seeing oil and fuel. We're not even seeing the utilities ease up. Okay? Through liquid natural gas. This is all just being done, being sent to the CCP somewhere out of the harbors of China by this former CCP agent who was a member of the Chinese Communist Party. And it's all under Greg Abbott's watch. That's also Greg Abbott's corruption. He's mucked up and ruined almost every social society issue or society civil matters. Civil rights matters by law, legally. The abortion act. That whole no excuses, no allowances providing through rape and incest. No exceptions. The economy, all the taxes and the governmental lawsuits. You know, he's pulling in a lot of money while businesses and corporations are price hiking. He's not doing anything like that. He's not doing anything to stop it. Racism, this anti-critical race theory. They brought up a small good point. The focus of the white man on the black man approach. But there's a lot of things that the governor could have done. He could have accepted it and reformed it to where it tackles every single thing. There's a lot of white on white crimes that have been taking place. And I've talked about this on the critical race theory post, where they could have started with the English versus the Irish, you know, and stuff that was masked over by land grabs, the Hatfields versus the McCoys, you know, land grab schemes like that. The railroads. The railroad was a white man business owner that made all these wacky trails in order to make more money off of our government, which was run by white people. Okay? That's corporate theft. That's government stealing. That's also a white on white crime. It's a white on white crime that's disguised as a ripoff of the government. You know, or labeled in specific. But what people are doing is forgetting that it's a white on white crime also. So critical race theory hits that stuff at an economical level, at a business level, at a land grab level, you know, corruption. Each and every governor that opposed this, including mine, had every opportunity to grab all that knowledge and reform it to where it hits every aspect, as opposed to primarily focusing on one. They had the perfect opportunity to do that, to help bring up our society through a mental clarity level based off of those crimes and how we've topped them. How we've topped them over, I should say. Toppled them over, to be more politically correct. You know, instead, it's being used through catch and jail, or in some parts, profile and pull over. But it all originated out of stop and search. Back to the housing, deregulated the marking, where leading to gerrymandering schemes. Now, he's got this whole thing where he could have worked on it through the economy, to where the housing market isn't such a price gouging, price hiked piece of crap agency department, industry, I should say, the housing industry, and gerrymandering so many defenseless people, despite the fact that it got rid of that one neighborhood drug dealer. That's just dumb. A drug dealer is going to get thrown in jail regardless, and he's going to be removed regardless, But yeah, I mean, it's just dumb. The housing market, Greg Abbott dropped the ball considerably. There are companies that I didn't even know existed that are building a 2-story, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, front yard, backyard, on say 1,900 to 2,100 feet of land for $300,000 to $400,000, depending on the location, the scenic hill country, $500,000. When before these companies came down here, a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-car garage, 2-story house on say 19 to 2,100 feet only costed $100,000 to $150,000, depending on the location. And that was before the pandemic, before these companies came down here. It used to be $150,000 that you could pay off in 20 years on a 20-year plan. This is also Governor Greg Abbott's corruption. Medical health, the pandemic hoax, so therefore no backup when the vaccinations came. Budget cuts, as we're now seeing. Texas Health and Human Services, Department of Family and Protective Services, budget cuts on those. That's also Governor Greg Abbott's corruption. The cost of living, the price hikes, what I call corporate ass kissing. He's getting subsidies or some kind of payoffs from these major corporations out of all these variety of industries. He's not backing up the current administration that's telling these companies, hey, knock it off. Stop with the price gougings and any other kind of price hikings. Knock it off, and let's get back to work to making everything a cost of living affordable again. Nobody's told them to do this crap. And aside from the current administration, politicians like my governor isn't stopping it either. This is also my current governor's corruption. I can't tell you who to vote for. I can only tell you that I'm going to vote for anybody and everybody that's backing up the current administration. Governor Greg Abbott has always made promises. He's always promised meetings. He's always promised these things to create new and helpful laws that are either previously worthless laws, now revisited with the same worthless outcome, or it's a restricted law or a budget-cutted law, or if not just plain removed law that just simply doesn't help anyone. That's also a part of my governor's corruption. Everything he has done has been for his gain and profit, while telling you it's for your own good. Why? Because as I've said through post after post after post, and I'm going to say it again, post after post after post, it's all about the money. Belief is the tool. He's done all this garbage, and he's led all of his followers to believe it was for your own good. And his followers are foolish enough to actually believe it. In light of and still noticing Texas Governor Greg Abbott's corruption, I finally have some data that has been brought up to verify my speculations of him and how he's been shifting money around and still leaving me to ask, and now with good reason, where's those billions of dollars out of the government's tax-paying dollars? Where is it? Because as we're finding out now, everything financially paid for that he is doing is through other departments' money. Not the $4 billion plus dollars that he receives from the government. Where's the money, man? Where's that money? Because we're not seeing any of it down here. We're not seeing it down here amongst those little people. Yeah, this also is my current governor's corruption. I speculated it, and now we've got some reports of just what it is. And if I was the current administration, I would write up a legislation that gives the IRS full investigative authority to anything and everybody, to anyone and anybody that's doing this kind of sketchy stuff, legalizing it and carrying it through while trying to persuade everybody in his or her state, in this case his state, that he's doing it for their own good. Now, obviously, even if he was to want to do that, which I don't really know, I know that he can't get it done without all the backup that he can get. Hence the reason why I'm saying I can't tell you who to vote for. I can only tell you that I'm voting for anybody and everybody that's going to back up this current administration. And I'm going to keep my fingers crossed and hoping that this kind of garbage stops. Even it has to be done at the local level. So, that's the long and the short of it. I do apologize. I've made promises some time back that I was going to keep them short, the posts. But with all of this information that I'm getting and I'm writing down and I'm making notes, and I'm having to resort to past previous posts, information, data that I've been recording and writing down, and all this crap that I've been referring to and bringing up the past things that verify the stuff, or vice versa, where today's art posts verify the previous ones, I have to keep talking, and I'm sorry. But I hope that this is an eye-opener, and if it's not an eye-opener, I hope it's helpful. I hope what I'm throwing in, connects a few dots, because there's a lot of people. I'm still a rideshare driver, and I'm still hearing people that just really are taking note of whatever scandal is going on, and not necessarily researching anything. And when they're making note of it, for me to catch the hint that I shouldn't tell them who to vote for and all this stuff, and that they're not going to be diving into the research anyway, it's fine. But I do ask them if I could give them some advice, and they say, okay, go for it. I said, if you ever do take note of it, just make sure that you're noting whoever's presenting the facts, because that's what I do here. That's what I tell everybody that listens to me. And you know where this is going. If you've been listening to me this entire time, you've got whatever subject, you've got one report that says these are the facts. These are the percentages to lead in that facts. And here's the possible outcome of it. Whatever that subject is, you go to another person concerning that very same subject, another person altogether that says these are the facts. Oh no, those are false facts. These are the percentages. Oh, I don't think they're that high or low, depending on what makes it capable of letting him spit, you know. And here's the possible outcome that may result of this. Nothing is going to result of this. Nothing. You got those two types of reporting concerning whatever subject. Those two types of reporting. Use that rule of thumb. You know, again, this is just advice. Should you ever decide to research any of this, use that little rule of thumb to help you guide your way into making the next best decision. And that's it. That's it. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. You know, I wasn't telling them who to vote for. I'm not going to tell them. If they wanted to know whom I might, you know, then I would tell them I'm going to vote for anybody and everybody that's backing up the current administration. And that's it, you know. So that's how I'm working. That's how I roll on this show, you know, because I still have that one priority. Common sense on common ground. All the other podcasters, you know, wherever they are, they're doing that gloom and doom stuff. You know, they're claiming that everything's turned to pot, that everything's gone to hell. Okay, our justice system and democracy is going to be served in hell in a handbasket. You know. And it doesn't matter what side of the political theater they on, political aisle. There's a lot of them that are just plain angry, you know. And then there's some that are great reporters. You know them, BTC, Ring of Fire, you know, Dollamore Daily, TYT. You know who they are. There's some that are doing some good reporting, you know, and you just take notes of what they're saying, see if it backs up anything that involves your state, should you actually be watching this out of state, and use your better judgment, you know, to make the right decisions. You know, I'm expecting a lot of fire breathing and hopping mad arguments and opinions, even false accusations, more Chads, more Karens, and stuff like that, regardless as to whatever political party wins or loses. Okay, the midterms, considering the midterms, you know, that's gonna happen regardless. The big question is, you know, are we at least going to be getting the lube? And I hate to say it that way, but it's true, you know, because we're getting it one way or another. You know, best way to deal with politics is looking at whoever's going to be using the lube. Which one's going to be the least painful dildo? Okay? That's a real good rule of thumb also. These days, you still have to do your research in order to know, because wild accusations are being done all over, from both sides of the aisle, especially now in the midterms with competition for this political position, whether it be a local representative or senator, or if not actual state governor. I mean, it's getting pretty harsh, you know. So that's my best advice. And honestly, I think that's the best way to do it while upholding my site's motto, common sense on common grounds. Okay? We're getting stuck anyway. It's best to see who's going to be gentle. And in order to do that, you got to do your research. You got to see what's going on. Okay? Here on this show, you've now found one way to guide you based off of what I've stated concerning corruption of my local Texas governor. So, for those of you in your own state, you know, just bear down, grin, and read or listen to interviews reports. Watch reports on YouTube if you want. But most definitely, just grin and bear it, whatever ugly reality these facts present. And whatever wild malarkey is being exasperated, through some opiniontary, you got to tough it out. Because you got to see who's giving the facts and who's, on the other side of that very same subject, throwing out opinion, rhetoric or propaganda, hate or backing up a conspiracy or a lie. You got to use your better judgment, dude, or dudette. Grin down, bear down, grin, bear it, and check it out. Do your research, find out, and I pray, and I got my fingers crossed for you that all of that helps you make your better decision, especially in these upcoming very important midterm decisions. Okay, so that's it right now. I'm going to stop, and I'm going to stop taking up the full hour. God, I yap a lot. I'm sorry about that. But again, I finally got something that backed up all of the previous data. So, y'all take care. Y'all take it easy, and hope that y'all keep on taking good care of yourselves. This is Chris with Chris's Comments, signing out. Signing out.